In the whirlwind of AI advancements, a fascinating question pops up. Are we seeing a straightforward race between AI titans like OpenAI and Anthropic, like a classic tortoise and the hare playing out in code?
Mhm.
Or is the reality maybe a bit more complex, a more nuanced strategic game, perhaps with some hidden moves?
Yeah, I think that's closer to it.
Welcome to this deep dive. We're really going to try and dissect the current rivalry and the innovation driving OpenAI and Anthropic.
And we've got some interesting material to work with.
We do. Our sources for this exploration include a pretty lively discussion from the Singularity subreddit, always insightful there.
Oh, yeah, that fellow.
Comparative data from IOT Analytics, an in-depth business case study of OpenAI by Elias, which is quite revealing,
Very detailed.
and a strategic analysis from Forbes. So, for you, the learner, our mission is clear. Cut through the hype, extract the essential insights, the surprising twists, the aha.
I'm at the core of it.
Exactly. Illuminate the dynamics between these two AI powerhouses without getting completely swamped by all the information flying around. Okay, let's unpack this.
Right. Well, what immediately jumps out, I think, is just how fundamentally different the paths OpenAI and Anthropic took are in structuring their very existence, really, and articulating their core missions.
Totally different starting points.
Yeah. OpenAI, remember, started back in 2015, purely nonprofit, very altruistic goal. Make sure AGI, whenever it arrives, benefits all of humanity.
A noble goal, for sure.
But then reality hits. The sheer scale of resources needed for AGI, it just demanded huge changes.
Right.
So that led first to that kind of unusual capped profit model in 2019, a sort of hybrid thing.
Yeah, I remember that. Always seemed a bit awkward.
Yeah, it was trying to bridge a gap. And then, more recently, May 2025, they shifted their for-profit arm to become a public benefit corporation, a PBC.
Right, and that Elias business case really digs into why. They basically said, look, the capped profit model, it just wasn't cutting it anymore with the kind of competition heating up for AGI.
The costs were just exploding.
Exactly. They needed vast resources, and the figures thrown around were potentially in the trillions. So a more conventional structure, offering equity, that was seen as the only way to pull in that kind of serious investment.
Makes sense from a capital perspective.
But interestingly, the original nonprofit entity, it still has a significant oversight role. It's set to be a major shareholder in the PBC.
So they're trying to keep some link to the original mission.
That's the idea. Reconcile the need for massive funding with those founding ideals. But as the Forbes analysis points out, not everyone's convinced.
Concerns about mission drift.
Precisely. Worries that this could dilute those philanthropic principles, maybe lessen the focus on AI safety as, financial pressures mount.
The classic tension.
It really highlights that tension, yeah. Between the lofty goals and the practical realities of scaling something this huge, potentially world-altering. This whole shift to a PBC basically signaling that AGI needs unprecedented capital. It could set a precedent, right?
Absolutely. For any mission-driven tech trying to scale exponentially.
Now, if we pivot to Anthropic, quite a different story from the get-go.
Completely different. They were founded as a PBC right back in 2021. And their mission statement, explicitly about responsible development for the long-term benefit of humanity. It's baked into their legal DNA.
And they have that trust structure, right?
Exactly. The long-term benefit trust, the LTBT, that's the cornerstone. It's an independent body. Its members have zero financial stake in Anthropic making money.
Zero stake. Wow.
Yeah. And they hold a special class of stock. This gives them the power to actually elect and even remove some of Anthropic's board members.
Specifically to keep them on mission.
Precisely.
Right.
To ensure the company stays aligned with that stated purpose. It feels much more proactive, structurally ingrained mission protection compared to OpenAI's kind of evolutionary path from nonprofit.
It really does feel like Anthropic maybe looked at what happened elsewhere and said, okay, we need to build this in from day one, like the Forbes piece suggests, that LTBT is like an internal ethical governor.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Even with these very different setups, both of them face this potential issue people call amoral drift.
Right, the idea that financial pressures just slowly erode the original mission over time.
Yeah. For OpenAI, with its more standard structure investors, that pressure seems almost built in now.
You'd expect it.
But one of our sources mentioned this Harvard Law Review analysis. It points out that super stakeholders can be a risk for both.
Super stakeholders, you mean the big partners?
Exactly. In Anthropic's case, think Google, Amazon. They're pouring in massive capital, providing essential infrastructure.
They're going to want a return on that investment, a big one.
Naturally. So the critical question becomes, how much sway could these giants have over Anthropic's safety-first mission if, down the line, their strategic goals don't perfectly align?
That's the million-dollar question, or maybe billion-dollar question, or trillion. So this potential for external pressure, it naturally leads us to think about how they actually make money, right? How they sustain these huge ambitions. Let's look at their business models now.
Good transition. Because we see these distinct foundations, OpenAI adapting its structure for massive funding, Anthropic building mission protection from the start.
Yeah.
Yet both are navigating this complex world where huge capital, powerful partners, they can introduce pressures that might challenge those original intentions over time.
That proactive LTBT versus the more reactive nonprofit oversight, that's definitely a key difference to keep watching.
Oh, sure.
Okay, so turning to the nuts and bolts. How do these companies actually make money? What are their strategies? That Elias case study, it gives a really good look at OpenAI. It's quite diversified, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Multiple streams. You've got ChatGPT subscriptions, obviously, licensing the models through the API.
Which lots of businesses rely on now.
Huge.
Yeah.
And then that massive partnership with Microsoft, the Azure OpenAI service, that's multifaceted.
And the revenue numbers are pretty staggering already. 2023, over $1 billion reported. Some estimates even higher, like $3.7 billion.
That scale is significant, yeah.
Yeah.
Shows how widely their tech has been adopted. And they're not stopping there.
No way.
They're aiming to become this transaction-enabled platform, which hints at, future revenue from ads maybe, or commissions from AI agents doing things.
Interesting. And the projections, they're kind of mind-blowing. Over $13 billion by 2025. And $174 billion by 2030?
Audacious is the word. And while ChatGPT is big now, the strategy seems to be that these platform revenues will become dominant later on.
But there's a flip side, right? The costs.
Oh, yeah. Huge expenses, projected around $46 billion through 2029. A lot of that is just compute power, raw compute, and talent, of course.
You got to pay for those GPUs and the top minds.
Exactly. And it's telling, they don't expect positive cash flow until 2029. That screams growth over profit right now. Very typical tech giant playbook.
It's the Amazon model, but maybe on steroids for AI. And they're casting a really wide net audience-wise.
Everyone, basically. Developers using the API, big companies with ChatGPT Enterprise and Azure.
Some just regular folks using ChatGPT.
Right. And hiring the former Instacart CEO for a new applications division. That signals a big push into consumer products, doesn't it? Moving beyond just the models.
Seems like it. Their differentiators seem to be that cutting-edge research rep, the brand name, which is huge now.
Everyone knows ChatGPT.
And making tools that are relatively easy to use. And that Microsoft partnership, over $13 billion invested, that's been key.
Crucial.
But there are hints they might be looking to diversify cloud partners, maybe lessen the dependence on Microsoft a bit.
Could be smart long-term. We've heard whispers about CoreWeave, Oracle.
And then these massive infrastructure plans. Stargate, a $500 billion supercomputer project.
Sounds like science fiction, but maybe not.
And OpenAI for countries, partnering with nations for local data centers, custom ChatGPTs. It's a vision of truly global dominance.
It's incredibly ambitious. Now, shifting to Anthropic's business, it looks quite different.
More focused, right?
Definitely. Revenue mainly from API services for the Claude models and direct enterprise contracts, building bespoke solutions for clients.
And they have the Claude chatbot subscription, too.
They do. Now, their revenue numbers are smaller currently, $10 in 22, $100 in 23, hitting $1 billion run rate in 24, projecting $2 2Bs for 25.
Still, that growth rate is incredibly fast.
Undeniably impressive. And a key goal for them is positive cash flow by 2027. The strategy involves cutting their cash burn significantly to get there.
And partnerships are vital for them, too, for capital and cloud.
Absolutely crucial.
So they've really zeroed in on the enterprise market, especially industries where safety and compliance are everything: finance, healthcare, legal, with Claude for Work.
That seems to be the sweet spot. They have the public Claude.ai site, sure, but the business focus feels very B2B.
And their big selling point there, it's that safety-first brand, the constitutional AI framework.
Exactly. Positioning themselves as the go-to for trustworthy, reliable AI. That resonates in regulated industries where risk aversion is high.
Makes perfect sense. And they've got the backing to fuel it. Big investments and partnerships with Amazon.
Who's their primary cloud provider? Using their custom chips, too.
And Google, another major infrastructure partner. Plus that recent Databricks deal.
Yeah, integrating Claude into the Databricks platform, that gives them access to a huge existing enterprise customer base. Smart move.
But again, that reliance on Amazon and Google, it brings us back to that super stakeholder dynamic we mentioned.
The potential for pressure down the line if business goals diverge from the safety mission, it's something to watch.
Definitely. And for Anthropic to hit those revenue targets, get cash flow positive by 2027, they need serious traction in that enterprise space.
They do. And they have to convince those cautious industries that safety first doesn't mean sacrificing cutting-edge capability.
It's a balancing act.
A very delicate one. So these different market positions, different strategies, they're all built on different tech approaches, fundamentally. Maybe we should dig into that now.
Yeah, let's do that. So how do these distinct strategies and philosophies actually play out in the market? Who's leading right now?
Well, if you look at the data from early 2025, OpenAI definitely has a larger slice of the generative AI market, somewhere between, say, 11% and 17%.
Compared to Anthropic.
Anthropic's around 3.91%, so a noticeable gap. And that's reflected in valuations, too. OpenAI at a massive $300 billion, Anthropic at $61.5 billion.
Wow, big difference. And the impact of their main products.
Tells a story, too. ChatGPT's growth has just been explosive. 500 million weekly users. One of the most visited websites globally. It's clearly transforming industries.
You can't avoid it.
And Sora, their text-to-video model, it has the potential to completely shake up video production. Still early days for its broad impact, though.
But that massive adoption comes with huge responsibilities, right? Addressing the downsides.
Absolutely. Misinformation, ethics, energy use. Big challenges.
Meanwhile, Anthropic's Claude models, they seem to be gaining ground, especially in those enterprise settings.
You know, largely because of that safety emphasis, but also strong capabilities. Things like coding, reasoning, handling different data types.
Some users on that Singularity thread we looked at were saying Claude actually did better than GPT on analyzing images in their tests.
Interesting anecdote. And there's a lot of positive talk about Claude's artifacts feature helping with project workflows.
And Claude seems to have this growing reputation for fewer hallucinations, less making stuff up.
That reputation for reliability is huge for enterprise adoption. Trust is paramount there.
So what were analysts predicting for 2025?
Generally, OpenAI continuing its aggressive push. GPT 4.1, maybe the rumored GPT 5, focusing on more sophisticated interaction, more personalization. Google's Gemini 2.5, seen as a major competitor at that high end too.
And Anthropic.
Positioned as the responsible challenger, really leaning into ethics, reliability for businesses, especially in regulated fields. There were even reports suggesting Claude 3.7 Sonnet and their Claude Code tool were outperforming OpenAI in some coding benchmarks.
That's significant, beating OpenAI at coding.
In some benchmarks, reportedly.
Yeah.
And it was telling that OpenAI internally apparently described GPT 4.5 as not being a frontier model in terms of fundamentally new capabilities. Suggests maybe a plateau in some areas.
Interesting nuance. So OpenAI has the user base, the early lead, but Anthropic is carving out this valuable niche, focusing on reliability, safety for enterprise, and maybe even getting an edge in specific areas like code.
It looks that way. The Reddit discussions echo that too. Lots of admiration for recent Claude advances, some even suggesting Anthropic might have the edge right now in pure text LLMs.
But there's always that lingering question, what's OpenAI not showing us? That GPT-5 speculation just doesn't go away.
That's the nature of the field right now, constant speculation. The AI API market is set to explode, and OpenAI's versatile GPT models lead in traffic there.
But Anthropic's raising serious money, too.
Strong fundraising momentum, definitely.
Yeah.
It's a complex picture financially, though. OpenAI reportedly had high costs, losses in 2024, mostly down to that immense compute needed.
Raises questions about long-term profitability for this whole field, doesn't it? Maybe influences decisions about open sourcing things.
Absolutely. The cost of compute is a massive factor.
Okay, let's get deeper into the tech itself, the building blocks. What are the core innovations, the development strategies for OpenAI and Anthropic?
Right. OpenAI obviously is known for the GPT series. GPT-1 up to GPT-4o, maybe 4.5, 4.1 floating around.
And that O series?
Yeah, the O series, O1, O3, O4 mini. They're specifically trained to, quote, think for longer, spend more compute during generation.
Which helps with reasoning on hard problems.
Seems to, yeah. Architecturally, they lean heavily on the decoder-only transformer, pioneered by Google. Lots of attention mechanisms.
The secret sauce for text generation.
Pretty much. And while the details of the latest models are secret, it's widely thought they're exploring things like mixture of experts, MoE.
To make huge models more efficient.
Exactly. And sparse transformers. Ways to scale up model size without computation scaling proportionally, especially at inference time. Might be key for AGI scaling. It's a different architecture than, say, encoder-decoder models used elsewhere.
Makes sense given the costs. And their training, it's that big pre-training phase on tons of data.
Self-supervised, yeah. On massive text and code data sets. Then the crucial fine-tuning stage using reinforcement learning from human feedback, RLHF.
Where humans rate the answers.
Guide the model towards being helpful, honest, harmless. And for the newer O series, they talk about deliberative alignment.
Deliberative.
Teaching the models safety rules explicitly, training them to think about the rules before answering. Plus, that Elias study highlighted their predictable scaling.
Being able to predict how bigger models will perform based on smaller ones. That's huge, given the training costs.
Massive advantage, especially when training GPT-4 reportedly cost over $100 million.
Wow. Okay, so Anthropic, their Claude series.
Claude 2, the Claude 3 family, now 3.5 and 3.7 Sonnet. They also use the transformer architecture foundationally.
But their big differentiator is...
Constitutional AI. CAI is a fundamentally different take on alignment.
Right, the Constitution.
They train the models to follow a set of ethical principles to the Constitution using reinforcement learning from AI feedback, RLAIF.
RLAIF, not RLHF. So the AI helps generate the feedback.
Based on the Constitution, yes. The goal is to bake helpfulness, honesty, harmlessness into the model during training, not just steer it afterwards.
That's a key difference. And Claude 3.7 Sonnet has hybrid reasoning and an adjustable thinking budget.
Yeah, interesting technical features. Lets them control resource use on complex tasks better. They're also generally more transparent about training, data sources, cleaning methods.
And they have that responsible scaling policy.
Right, to assess and manage risks as models get more capable. And infrastructure-wise, they rely heavily on AWS and Google Cloud.
So it feels like both build on transformers, but the training and alignment philosophies really diverge. OpenAI with RLHF and deliberative alignment. Anthropic with CAI baked in.
Precisely.
And that seems to lead to different strengths. OpenAI may be seen as having more raw power, versatility, creativity, especially for agents.
While Anthropic emphasizes safety, reliability, fewer hallucinations, strong coding, like with 3.7 Sonnet.
It's like OpenAI adds safety layers after the main training, while Anthropic tries to build it in with CAI.
That's a good way to put it.
And it feels like the game is shifting beyond just bigger models. Now it's about efficient architectures like MoE for OpenAI and inherent alignment, like CAI for Anthropic.
The field is definitely maturing.
Anthropic focusing on those high-value, safety-critical niches. Coding enterprise seems to support that idea. Specialization is happening.
It really does. The market's starting to see that different approaches yield different strengths, and maybe there isn't one single best way to build AI.
Okay, let's pivot to something absolutely critical. The ethical frameworks, the safety protocols. Both companies talk a lot about safe and beneficial AI, but how do their actual frameworks and actions stack up?
Right. OpenAI's mission for safe and beneficial AGI is central to them. They define AGI as AI outperforming humans in most economically valuable work. Big goal.
And they stress distributing benefits, preventing harm.
Yeah. They have a multi-layered ethical framework. RLHF, tough adversarial testing, external audits, usage policies, content filters.
And that preparedness framework, version 2 now.
That's key. It's designed to track and mitigate risks from frontier AI, specifically in critical areas. Biochem threats, cybersecurity, AI self-improvement potential.
The scary stuff.
Basically, it sets high and critical capability thresholds in these tracked categories, triggering stricter safety protocols, oversight from their internal safety advisory group, the SAG.
But persuasion risks are handled separately.
Interestingly, yes, managed outside that specific framework. Their overall strategy is defense in depth. Lots of research into deliberative alignment, red teaming, scalable oversight, better human-AI interfaces.
But there have been concerns, right? External audits, like from METR and Apollo Research, mentioned in the Reddit threads and Forbes.
Yeah, those audits flagged potentially deceptive behaviors in OpenAI's O3 models, behaviors that OpenAI's internal SAG didn't rate as high risk under their framework.
A disconnect there.
And there were reports about safety testing timelines being cut short sometimes. It raises questions about relying solely on internal assessments versus independent ones.
The classic internal bias potential, and the trade-off between automated checks and deeper human evaluation.
It's a tough balance. Now, Anthropic also has that core mission, safe and beneficial AI, but they really emphasize reliability, interpretability, steerability.
And their foundation is constitutional AI.
Exactly. Aligning models with that ethical constitution via RLLIF. They also have their responsible scaling policy, the RSP.
With safety levels, like biosafety levels.
Yeah. Analogous to that, yeah. AI safety levels, ASLs, plus a detailed harm assessment framework looking at physical, psychological, economic, societal autonomy impacts. Broad scope.
And their specific safety targets.
Resisting jailbreaks, mitigating bias, preventing misuse like disinformation or fraud, child safety, using policies, red teaming, detection tech.
And they seem quite transparent about it, the Transparency Hub.
Yeah, public reports on banned accounts, government requests, plus detailed model cards like the one for Claude 3.7 Sonnet, outlining uses, limits, safety stuff.
Their research agenda sounds extensive too. CAI, mechanistic interpretability.
Which is like trying to reverse engineer the AI's neural circuits to understand how it works. Crucial for safety.
Plus alignment science, societal impacts, looking for failure modes like sleeper agents or deception.
And they collaborate actively with the US and UK AI safety institutes for pre-deployment checks, like they did for Claude 3.5 Sonnet. They even fund third-party safety evaluations.
It feels like safety really drives their product decisions. Adjusting 3.7 Sonnet's refusals, stricter computer use rules, dedicated child safety testing.
It seems deeply integrated. That safety-first branding, the RSP, CAI, ISO certification, the hub, it's a comprehensive package, a clear market differentiator.
But even with all that, those independent evaluations, like US-UK institutes finding Claude 3.5 Sonnet, could still be circumvented. It shows achieving true harmlessness is still incredibly hard.
It's an ongoing massive challenge for everyone, so comparing them. OpenAI has its preparedness framework, internal SAG oversight. Anthropic has its RSP, independent LTBT mission alignment.
Both frameworks get stricter as risks rise.
Yep, but OpenAI perhaps relies more on human judgment for defining acceptable use, societal bounds. Anthropic tries to embed principles directly via CAI.
Anthropic also seems more focused on public transparency with the hub, ISO certs. OpenAI has its public framework and model spec.
Different styles. But ultimately, both face the same huge challenges, defining acceptable risk, ensuring safeguards are robust, balancing safety with the incredible pace of development.
Let's talk about the people driving this. Talent, culture. How do OpenAI and Anthropic build their teams?
OpenAI definitely uses its growth, its impact, Sam Altman's leadership as a magnet, attracting people excited by huge compute challenges, hard problems, the AGI mission.
The strategy involves internal mobility, AI for upskilling.
Yeah, data-driven talent management, good benefits for a high-performance culture. Though the early open collaborative culture, it reportedly became more secretive after the for-profit shift.
And that whole Altman ousting drama highlighted some internal tensions.
For sure. The Elias study mentioned that shift from openness to being more product-focused impacting the culture. The Altman events put a spotlight on those dynamics.
Now, Anthropic, their recruitment sounds very mission-driven.
They're explicitly seeking people passionate about safe and beneficial AI, interested in safety research. They foster a research culture they call big science, empirical, collaborative.
Competitive pay, equity, good benefits, inclusive fertility, generous parental leave.
And that optional equity donation matching program, that's pretty unique.
It is, and the founders, many ex-OpenAI, clearly shape that safety focus. Connections to effective altruism likely influence priorities too.
Dario Amode's leadership seems central to reinforcing that mission-driven ethos. That equity matching is a real cultural marker, likely attracting very altruistically motivated people.
So contrast there, OpenAI scale, impact, Altman's vision, Anthropic, safety mission, collaborative research, Amode's caution, and ethics focus.
Distinct vibes. That equity donation program really signals something unique about Anthropic's intended culture.
Okay, finally, let's look ahead. The long-term visions, where are they heading, especially regarding AGI?
OpenAI under Altman clearly envisions AGI. A unified model voice, video, text search, multitasking, potentially with GPT-5 or 6, systems surpassing human intellect across the board.
And distributing the benefits, that compute budget idea.
Yeah, while acknowledging the need for human supervision initially. Their mission seems to be evolving towards individual empowerment via accessible AI, preventing misuse by authoritarians, democratic AI. Security is foundational to getting there, they say.
And Anthropic. Amode sees AI surpassing humans in almost everything pretty soon, too, like 2-3 years.
He does. Though he tends to dismiss AGI as a marketing term, preferring powerful AI systems. His vision, like in his Machines of Loving Grace essay, sees huge potential upsides: health, economy, work.
But he stresses risk mitigation as key.
Absolutely. He believes mitigating risks is paramount for a positive future because basic AI progress is inevitable. Their deep commitment to responsible development, safety, transparency, it stems partly from those early differences with OpenAI's direction.
And co-founder Paul Christiano often highlights the huge philosophical and ethical hurdles of AGI.
So while both aim for superintelligence, the framing differs. OpenAI uses AGI freely, talks empowerment, timeline within a few years. Anthropic is warier of the term. Amode critiques the hype, but has a similar 2-3 year timeline for surpassing human capabilities.
Their main concerns about advanced AI also diverge.
Seems so. OpenAI focuses on democratic access, preventing authoritarian misuse. Anthropic heavily emphasizes technical alignment, preventing catastrophic harm.
And their guiding ethics reflect that. OpenAI, human intent, societal bounds. Anthropic, constitutional AI baked in.
Right, and maybe a slightly different perceived urgency. OpenAI pushing deployment for empowerment, Anthropic stressing the urgency of safety research keeping pace.
Lastly, how do they engage with AI governance regulation? It's becoming such a huge topic.
OpenAI has been very proactive. Proposals for the U.S. AI Action Plan.
Like federal preemption of state laws in exchange for government access for safety tests. Exactly. Plus, an export control strategy for democratic AI to allies. A copyright stance supporting freedom to learn via broader fair use, government support for AI infrastructure, government adoption of AI. And Altman testified before Congress, right? Advocating investment, light touch federal regulation.
He did. Proactive engagement.
Anthropic's engagement, more safety focused.
Often, yeah. Supporting strong export controls on advanced chips and model weights, the diffusion rule. Recommending tweaks to chip access tiers, more funding for enforcement.
They had that blip with the bias mitigation policy reversal, though.
They faced some scrutiny there, yes. Amade has also committed to making models more interpretable by 2027, emphasized secure labs, communication with intelligence agencies.
So again, reflecting their core philosophies, OpenAI's broad proposals push innovation, U.S. leadership, federal preemption. Anthropic focuses more narrowly on safety, security export controls, interpretability.
Different undercurrents. OpenAI facilitating rapid deployment, Anthropic ensuring the technical and security groundwork for safe scaling. That policy reversal incident shows the scrutiny Anthropic faces too, balancing commitments.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive, we've seen clear distinctions, but also some interesting overlaps between OpenAI and Anthropic.
Definitely.
OpenAI's rapid scaling, broad market aims versus Anthropic's safety first, enterprise focus, different structures, funding, safety approaches, even different AGI visions and regulatory engagement styles.
That's a complex picture.
So back to those first questions. Is it tortoise and the hare? Is OpenAI holding back some secret weapon? It seems the reality is way more complicated than that.
Much more intricate. They're both running distinct races on different tracks with unique advantages and significant challenges.
Absolutely. It's not just about who finishes first. It's about the paths they're taking, the values they prioritize, and the impact those choices will have on AI's future.
That's the crucial part.
And that leads to our final thought, maybe the most important one for you, our listener. As these AI giants evolve and compete, what fundamental values, speed, market dominance, or an unwavering commitment to safety and ethics do you think should ultimately guide AI development? And what role should regulation play in making sure we get the outcome we want? Definitely some big questions to think about as this AI landscape keeps changing so rapidly around us.